Hi, friends. Today, for our reading lesson and also writing lesson and also science lesson, I want to talk to you a little bit about habitats. So, a habitat is a place where something lives. And today, I want to read you a story about some different habitats that some different animals live in. And this is a nonfiction story titled Animal Homes. And I want you to take a look at the different animals that you will be learning about today. So this one is a prairie dog. This one is a clownfish. This one is a snake. Or like earlier this week we learned about the word viper. But this one's the snake. And then this one's a beaver. And I want to read to you a little bit about each of the habitats that these animals live in. And before I read them to you, read the story to you, I want you to think, do these animals, would you find these animals in the same places, or would you find them in different places? So some of them, sometimes some animals will live in water habitats. Some animals will live in on land habitats. Some will live in a forest or a desert. So today we're going to learn about four different habitats for these four different animals. So the title of this one is called Animal Homes. And it says, we are wild animals, talking about these four different animals. We live in homes called habitats. Each habitat meets our different needs. Come and see where we live. So, a habitat is a place where the animals live, and the habitat has to be able to meet the animals' needs, like we've been talking about in science. So, it has to provide them shelter, they have to have access to food, water, the things that they need for survival. Let's see what our first animal is. Here's our first animal. Can you see these two words? It says prairie dog. And here's a close-up picture of the prairie dog. And you can see the prairie dog where their habitats are. Do you think they live on the land or in the water? What do you guys think? Let's take a look. Well, when I look at the picture, I see some grassy flat land. And then here's a blown up picture that shows what's underneath this hole right here. So there's a hole right here in the ground. And then this picture over here shows you what's under the ground, the part that we cannot see in the picture. So the writing says, when I call out, it sounds like a bark. I live in an underground burrow. There are different rooms and tunnels. My family lives in a big prairie dog town. So here's the prairie dog's home. And you can see lots of tunnels and places for them to sleep and crawl around in. So this is called a burrow. This is a burrow, similar to the one that we learned about this week when we were talking about rabbits too in science. This is a burrow. So prairie dog's habitat is a burrow. Let's see the next animal. Do you see this animal? So this animal is a rattlesnake. Do rattlesnakes live on the land or in the water? Take a good look. I see a big dirt rocky patch here and some grass beyond there. It says here, follow me into my rocky den. I hide behind rocks to stay safe from enemies or predators. And remember, a predator is another animal that wants to maybe catch or harm or eat or hurt the particular animal. My scaly skin matches my surroundings. I shake my rattle when there is danger. So it's saying here that the rattlesnake's skin and the patterns on the rattlesnake's skin matches the habitat, the rocks and the dirt, so that he can camouflage himself to keep safe from the predators. So he likes to hide here in the rocks And this is his rocky den. Looks like a little bit of a hole, kind of like the prairie dog had, but I don't see any tunnels like the prairie dog had, so it's a little bit different. Let's see what the next animal is. Oh, this is a very different environment. Can you see this animal? This is a clownfish. And take a look. Does the clownfish live in the water or on land? What do you see in the picture? It says here, my home is in the warm ocean. So it's a water animal. It has a water habitat. A coral reef is the perfect habitat. There are many openings and cracks to hide in. I live with sea animals called anemones. The anemones feed and protect me. So here's the clownfish, and then these are the anemones down here. And the clownfish likes to swim in and out of the anemone. It gets its food there, so making sure that the habitat provides it food, shelter, and a place to live, protection as well from its enemies. And this one you might be familiar with from the movie Nemo, right? New animal. So what's interesting about this animal, this is called the beaver. And the beaver lives in two habitats, really. It lives on the land where it can get trees, but it also builds its habitat, its home, right here on top of the water. So here it looks like this is like a lake or a pond maybe, and this big, it just looks like a big pile of sticks or wood right on top of the water. That is the habitat that belongs to the beaver. And it says, my home is called a lodge. I build it with sticks and mud. The door to my home is under the water. My lodge keeps me warm during the winter time. So for the beaver to get inside of its lodge, it has to swim into the water and go under, and it gets into the lodge from underneath the water. It has to go under and swim up and into the lodge. So this is a very different habitat than the clownfish had. Even though it has water also, it's much different because this animal can be on water and land. On the back page here, it says, animals get what they want and need from their habitats. What is your habitat like? So when you think about yourself and the habitat that you live in, where do you guys live? What is your habitat like? Do you see your habitat in any of these pictures? I don't think so. But do you remember which animal lived in the burrow? A burrow is the underground hole or tunnel dug by an animal. Do you remember who lived in the burrow? So the burrow was the prairie dog, remember? And it had all those tunnels and rooms under the ground. This one was called a den. A den is a protected rocky area where a wild animal lives. Do you remember which animal lived in the den? It was the snake, right? This one is called a lodge. A lodge is a beaver's house made of sticks and mud, and it's right on top of the water like this. So the beavers have to gnaw or chop down the tree with their sharp teeth and then break it up and drag the pieces of sticks over into the mud, and then they just build this big mound of shelter for themselves to protect themselves. And the last one that we learned about today is called the reef. Do you remember which animal lives in the reef? It is the clownfish, but clownfish aren't the only animals that you will find in a reef. There are many animals that live in a reef. A reef is a place in the ocean where rocks and coral can be found. So the 4 habitats we learned about today are the burrow, the den, the lodge, and the reef. So today in your closed reading companion. It looks like this. We're going to open up to page number 83, and it looks like this. You see that? And the title up here says Animal Homes. And then these are the pictures that we saw in our book today. So we have the burrow, the den, the lodge, and the reef. And the directions say which two habitats are in the ground. So which two were built in the ground, on land? And then it says you're going to circle them. So which two were found on the land? And then it says draw the habitat that was on the water. So which animal had its habitat on top of the water? Not under the water or in the water, but on the water. So there were only two that were on the water, or excuse me, that involved water. There was the lodge for the beaver, and there was the reef for the clownfish. So which one was on top of the water? Can you remember? It was the lodge. So over here in this place over here, you're going to build, or draw, I should say, a picture of a mound of sticks with mud for the beaver's lodge. And make sure you put some water down here on the bottom, because that was part of the habitat too. And then at the bottom, there's a sentence that says, a fish lives in a blank. So which of these places would you find a fish living? There was only one from our story. And in our story, it said it was the clownfish lived in the R-E-E-F, reef. So you're going to write reef down here. But I bet you guys can come up with a different habitat that you've seen fish in before, right? Because fish don't only live on a reef. You might find fish living in a pond or in a river or in a lake or maybe even in a fish tank or a fish bowl. So in our story, the only fish that we learned about lived in the reef, but fish live in many different places, not just in reefs. I want you to know that. And then when you turn the page to page 84, there's a new animal. Can you see that? This is some meerkats. And it says here, what can you learn from the photo about where meerkats live? Check the clues. And then down here it says, a meerkat's mother and pup are looking out of their, can you see what their home is? Let's take a look back on our list here. Does their home look like a reef? No, I don't think so. Does it look like a lodge built on top of the water? No, I don't think so. Does it look like a den made of rock? Well, the color kind of looks the same, but I don't see any rocks on there. Do you suppose that the meerkats live in a burrow? Like this, with the tunnels underneath? Let's take a look. Looks like they're peeking out of a hole in the ground. And there's two of them, so I wonder if there's space under the ground where there's tunnels. It says, a meerkat's mother and her pup are looking out of their, can you see that word right there? And you guys have it in front of you at home too. It starts with a B, burrow. So down here it says meerkats live. And where do you want to write that they live? Meerkats live in a burrow, right? And when you guys are writing your words, please remember in between your words that you need to put an eraser spacer or a finger space in between your words. And then what kind of punctuation mark will you put at the end of that sentence? What would be the right kind of punctuation mark to go at the end of meerkats live in a burrow? Would it be a question mark? Would it be a period? Or would it be an exclamation point? I want to see what you guys decide to put there. Okay, So today you're learning about habitats and animals' homes, and for science today you guys get a chance to build your own bird nest. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. I hope you have a great time with reading, writing, and science today. I kind of mixed them all together. And I hope that you also enjoyed our non-fiction reading of animal habitats today. So enjoy your time making your nest. I can't wait to see what it looks like. Make sure you send me pictures, okay? Have a good day.